RG3, Robert Griffin Jr. III, Fox analyst, and his podcast, Out of Pocket with RG3. Good to have you back. What took the NFL so long to push forward in having stricter standards for playing surfaces?
Oh, yeah, that is a great question. I think I saw a graphic the other day of all the guys that have torn ACLs or torn their Achilles this year. Very, very alarming. And I think the players want all grass. They want to move away from the turf, especially as they get older. I feel like when you're like 15, 16, 17 years old, there's like this want to play on turf, and you got the turf tape on your arms and it looks cool. And then when you're like 28, 29, you're like, oh, my knees, my ankles. And you want to get away from that turf. So I think the NFL should, if they want to prolong the careers of some of their older players, because now 27, 28 is kind of getting older in the NFL at other positions, maybe not quarterback. They should make a mandate to have all teams play on grass.
Well, I don't know. Mahomes, I could see the injury happening, and I could understand that. But Micah Parsons, non-contact, like those are the ones that kind of baffle me. Is that the surface? Is it shoes? Is there something we're not factoring in with this?
Dan, I think it's multiple things, and I'm glad you want to have this conversation because, when you're an athlete and you're in the weight room or you're in a developmental program, the thing that was always said when I was growing up was bigger, faster, stronger, right? Well, the bigger and the faster and the stronger you become, the more force you're putting into the ground. So if your shoes, which the shoe companies have kind of gone towards this boost technology, right? And it almost feels like you're wobbling sometimes when you walk in those shoes, and they're terrible to cut in. Well, that technology has also bled into the cleats. So I don't know if the shoes are as good as they were, but they'll tell you that they have more traction.
Yeah.
So now if you have a bigger, faster, stronger athlete like a Micah Parsons who runs a 4.4, probably a 4.3, and he's every bit at 250 pounds, and his shoes have more traction on a surface that is built for traction, you're going to see more torn ACLs and more torn Achilles. And we're seeing that across all sports, not just football, also in basketball. Some of the biggest stars are having injuries that we didn't necessarily see from the Michael Jordans and the Magic Johnsons back in the day. So I think it's a combination of the surface as well as the athletes getting bigger, faster, and stronger. And it's kind of working against each other.
But when you go back to that January 2013 playoff game against Seattle and you got injured on that surface, did you sue the Washington? Did you sue your owner at the time?
I did not, Dan. Do you have any lawyers that
is the statute of limitations up? Because I
don't know. I think it is.
That's malpractice, isn't it? With a field as bad as that. That was embarrassing, that field.
Yeah, and there's so many guys that have been hurt on that field, and that was actually grass or sand, whatever you want to call it. You could see the dust flying up every time people were running fast on that field. So I didn't, at that time. I think a large part of it was it's really hard to sue the owner or sue the league and still play in the league. But if there's maybe there's a lawyer out there who can, claw back that statute of limitations, and I probably wouldn't be the only guy that would want to, be interested in that, because there's a difference between just having grass or turf and really terrible grass and really bad turf. So I think the league is going to continue to see this happening from an injury standpoint. And if they don't mandate what the teams actually have to use and, what company they need to use to have the right type of grass that's going to be the best possible for the players, you're going to continue to see top level players go down. And I know the league doesn't want that.
RG3, Fox football analyst, Out of Pocket with RG3, his podcast. What advice would you give Micah Parsons and anybody else who's had a torn ACL?
Yeah, the number one advice I would give to Micah Parsons and Patrick Mahomes right now is to not play next year. And it's because of when they got hurt. They both got hurt in December. You look at these injuries and we've seen guys come back in 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, and it would be 9 months for both of them if they were ready to go week one. but you don't really feel like yourself until about 15 months after the injury. And some guys will even tell you, hey, it took me 24 months to truly feel like myself again. And don't get me wrong, 80% of Micah Parsons is better than dang near almost every pass rusher in the NFL. 80% of Patrick Mahomes is better than almost every quarterback in the NFL. But I look at it from a standpoint because of my own experience. And these guys aren't me. But I tore my ACL and my LCL, the same injury that Patrick Mahomes has right now. And I wouldn't have played in 2013 if hindsight, which it is 2020, I wouldn't have played the following year because I wasn't back to myself yet. And Mahomes is a guy that runs around, is very creative, and is a great second reaction quarterback. And he can play from the pocket. But I would advise them to not play next year so that when they come back in 27, they can truly and fully be themselves, and it won't knock off years from their career. Now, I say that knowing very well, Dan, I've got, sources pretty close to the situation there that Mahomes is all in for week one. And we've seen Micah say that he's all in for week one as well. And it's because as players, we are wired to have this gladiator mindset that we can overcome anything, and we're not normal. But at the same time, I would advise them to sit out the following season because of when they got hurt. And then you can play for another 10, 15 years once you're fully back to health. Do I think that's what's going to happen? No. I think they're going to come back and they're going to play week one because that's how we're wired. And the only people that can really protect them is the teams.
Does it matter that it's the left knee for Mahomes?
Yeah, so mine was the right, which is the hip through knee, as they would say it. The left knee, it becomes concerning because now most guys will wear a brace on that knee. A lot of times we get hit offensive linemen. That's the leg that is straight for the most part. Sometimes when you're throwing the football, though it shouldn't be, from a full technique standpoint. But I think if it was the back knee and him pushing off, it would be more concerning. So I think the left knee makes it a little bit better, but it also raises the risk for re-injury because of the style of play in the NFL and those big guys falling into you.
Feels like Josh Allen, the window is wide open now because you don't have Mahomes. You don't have the Chiefs. Yeah. You don't have your kryptonite. Lamar's probably not in. Burrow not going to be in as well. Is it fair to look at Josh Allen and say, hey, man, because I don't think their team is anywhere near what it's been before. And now we feel like, well, these quarterbacks aren't in there. Now's your chance to go to the Super Bowl.
I think that Josh Allen and, Matt Stafford might be the two guys that most people in the media or most fans feel the most comfortable with right now. It's a topsy-turvy league. If you asked most people, the average fan, hey, who has the best record in the NFL? Don't look at your phone. Don't go to the standings. Who is it? I promise you they wouldn't say it's the Denver Broncos. They wouldn't. And that to me makes it to where if there was ever a year for Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl, it would be this season. All the top guys for the most part that you would expect to be there are not there.
Okay, but if Buffalo played Denver in Denver,
yeah,
who are you taking?
I'm taking Denver.
Okay.
So here, and this is a great point, Dan. You're great at this. And people they're hoarding their decision about the Denver Broncos because they don't want to be wrong about Bo Nix. And to me, that's not how you do the job. Like, I was a big Bo Nix guy. I thought that him and Sean Payton would be fabulous together. And they're 12-2 right now in year two and absolutely balling out with a great defense and an offense that's good enough to win games. So people have to stop being afraid of that and just acknowledge what you see in front of you. The Denver Broncos are the best team in the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks are one of the best teams in the NFL. The New England Patriots are one of the best teams in the NFL. And it's not just because of their records. They're just holding it against their quarterbacks because they don't know if they believe in Sam Darnold in the playoffs. They don't know if Drake May is real or not because they haven't seen him do it in the playoffs. They don't know if Bo Nix is real or not because they haven't seen him do it in the playoffs. But this season is shaping up to be one where we could have one of those three guys hoisting Lombardi at the end of the season. And I think that's great for the NFL. And I think some of the pundits need to catch up.
convince Bengal fans that they shouldn't be worried about Joe Burrow.
Oh no, they should be. You can't. Anytime a guy that's that competitive, the one who was smoking cigars and changed his last name on the back of his jersey at LSU to Burrow, the way that Louisianans spell it, that when that guy comes out and says, "Man, I don't know if I love this anymore. Like I got to find the joy," that's a problem. And it's also weird because I've heard some people compare it to the Carson Palmer situation, whereas Carson, I believe it was we had T.O. and Ocho, and he was just like, yeah, it's kind of tough to deal with these guys and what's going on and building around me. Joe's got his guys.
I think this is more Andrew Luck.
Ooh, okay. I could see that.
Getting banged up. Luck was 29 when he walked away.
Yep.
That the psychological, there's the physical damage. The psychological damage it's hard to rehab the psychological damage of all the injuries. We can do the physical part, but the psychological, those scars stay a lot longer.
And the psychological part that you're opening up there, Dan, is because Joe played so well last year. Sometimes as a quarterback, like when your team doesn't play well and you don't play well, it can kind of motivate you to be like, all right, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's figure it out. I didn't do this great and boom, boom, boom. But when you go out there and you throw for a gazillion touchdowns and 7,000 yards and you still lose and it's like not close, like you're not close to making the playoffs, and you're doing that year after year after year, and then you're getting hurt year after year after year, that's where I think Joe Burrow is kind of burning himself out in a way of like, he's made enough money, which I understood why Andrew made the decision that he made. If Andrew Luck was a fourth round quarterback and didn't get paid a bunch of money, he probably would have still been playing. But he was a first round pick that had signed $100 million contract and just was banged up. And he's like, you know what? I've taken care of my family. I've enjoyed this game for a long time. I'm good. And I could understand why Joe Burrow would be in that position. But I think if you're any of those guys on that team, don't even worry about the ownership and the GM and the head coach, just the players. Do you want Joe Burrow to be your quarterback? Because if you do, I'm taking him to 17 steak dinners over the next 17 days. And I'm trying to convince him like, hey, man, I know this is tough, but we need you. And I think that's the only thing that'll get Joe Burrow back into it is the guys in that locker room, really putting their arms around him and say, we got you back, man.
This just came in. The Dolphins are going to bench Tua, and they're going to start Quinn Ewers.
Wow.
What kind of statement is this? Now, I know, all right, we can see what Quinn Ewers can do. Why not let him see what? But when you bench a guy who's healthy and a big contract, you got him for another year, are the Dolphins moving on from Tua by making this decision?
I think I love Quinn Ewers. Don't get me wrong. I believe that Mike McDaniel has put himself in a situation that if Quinn Ewers doesn't go out and absolutely ball out, that they will move on from him. And it's because of the contract. You've got Tua Tagovailoa, who's got $200 million contract.
I think they're on the hook for, whatever, $50 million next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're as a head coach now saying, I don't want this guy. And that to me puts you in a very precarious situation as a head coach. When you make those types of decisions, you have to be right. And the question you have to ask if you're a fan of the Miami Dolphins is Quinn Ewers the guy to make that decision for? I thought he handled himself well at Texas. I've had him on our show, Out of Pocket with RG3. He is a God-fearing, great young man who probably shouldn't have fell in the draft as far as he did. But are you that confident as the coach that Quinn Ewers is the guy that I'm going to move forward with because I'm benching Tua Tagovailoa? Or are you saying we're going to go draft another quarterback next year and we're going to pay Tua to get out of here in the same way that the Broncos did to Russell Wilson?
Yeah, but I don't know if Mike McDaniel is going to be back next year. So if you have a better chance of ensuring that if you play Tua,
100%,
right? It feels like
he's putting himself on the plank and saying Quinn Ewers is going to save my job. That's what he's saying, and I think that's a bad. I think Tua Tagovailoa should still be the starting quarterback, and I think that Mike McDaniel just putting himself in a wall against the wall in the corner. And if Quinn Ewers doesn't go out there and win the rest of these games, he's going to be gone.
Great to talk to you. Great stuff today. Happy holidays.
Appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas. God bless.
That's Robert Griffin Jr. III, as McLovin. No, Griffith. McLovin called him Robert Griffith Jr. III. Out of Pocket with RG3, that podcast. That was some great stuff from him today.